Hello and welcome to Traditional Painting the Digital Way. This is where I use digital painting apps to teach traditional painting techniques. In this video, we're going to be doing a painting of a lake. And I wanted to do this to show you how to paint still water. And I'll probably try to do some more videos on different types of water coming in the future. So the app that I'm going to be using is Infinite Painter for Android. But if you want to follow along traditionally with traditional materials, you can use acrylics or even chalk pastels. So here are some of the brushes that I use when I'm painting with acrylics. And I like to use canvas board, but you can also use stretch canvas if you like, just whatever your preference is. And here are the acrylic paint colors that I use. And I mostly use Grumbacher Academy, but Liquitex or any of the other kind of acrylic paints, sort of professional grade paints are what I use. And usually they will have maybe one or two different color names. But they're usually about the same, pretty close anyway. And so I went ahead and got a photo reference from Pixabay, and I just wanted to do kind of a real still lake scene. And so the key to making water and making it look realistic is to reflect things in it. So you reflect the sky, you make the sky, we're using a blue color, and you will also add that color into the water. So first you start with the sky, and so I'm using ultramarine blue if you're following along traditionally with white acrylic gesso, and just kind of a really light blue. And then I'm using sort of an off-white color to just paint high, thin clouds. And you can use a dry brush technique for this, which means that if you're following along traditionally, you wouldn't put much paint on your brush. And you would probably put a little bit of cadmium orange into the white just to make it an off-white color. And here I'm using the smudge brushes on Infinite Painter, and you can use the filbert brush, or you can use some of the airbrush paints to paint brushes to sort of smooth out the white in there on the clouds, because we don't want much detail. And in here I'm trying to add the orange that you see into the sky here, and you would use if you're following along traditionally, cadmium orange light with a lot of white acrylic gesso and just make a light orange color. And I'm just kind of smudging it out here with the spray brushes and Infinite Painter. And then for the water, you want to mirror the colors and the sky in your water. So you want to use the same color of paint of blue that you used in your sky, and you want to go ahead and put it on the canvas down below. And then you also will have to use some of the white. You want to smudge in some of the white because you've got the clouds in the sky and it's going to be reflected down here in the water. Now it won't be in perfect detail because this is sort of a distant distant painting. So the reflections will be kind of vaguely suggested, and they won't be real sharp looking. But here we wanted to, so we added the clouds, and then we want to add the orange color that is in the sky. We also want that in our water. So we're mirroring the same color, and you would just use the same colors and put that in the water there. And then you want to go ahead and put your mountain in there, and that kind of serves as the the halfway point of the painting. It doesn't have to be halfway in the middle of the canvas. In fact, you might want it above or below, just so it doesn't look so monotonous and gives interest to the painting. But you want to go ahead and make the mountains in the middle there, and still leave the orange color there in the bottom too. And this is just kind of going to give you the look of the mountains, and it will serve to separate the mountains from the sky, the mountains and the lake from the sky. And so here I'm adding a little bit more darker orange, a little bit more intense orange around the mountains, because it's just kind of fading out there, and I want it to look a little more intense. And so the same thing that you do to the sky, you will have to put in the water. And so you reflect that orange in the water and just kind of smudge it out. And if you're following along traditionally, you can smudge it out with a paper towel or your finger or something. Right now we don't want a hard edge. We're just trying to show colors in the sky. And so you want to go ahead and also start working on the mountain. And I'm giving it kind of a purplish look. You can use a bluer look if you want to, just whatever color you prefer. It just looks nice with this orange in the background here. And so I'm just trying to put in the distant shapes of the mountains, and these are not going to be real big detail. They're just kind of interesting shapes. I'm not sure where this photo is. I got it from Pixabay, so I don't know what the background mountains are. But anyway, you want to go ahead and reflect that shape of the mountains into the water as well. And it's going to be kind of indistinct and blurry too. But you want to make sure that you have the same color reflected in the water and the same shapes that you have of the mountain reflected into your water. And that's what makes the lake look real and makes it look like it's water, because you can see the reflection. And so here I've got I'm just kind of working on the shapes, trying to blur them out a little bit, and working on the shape a little bit more on the top. And then I want to make a shoreline. And I'm just kind of using the straight line tool for this in Infinite Painter, and you can use old oil or filbert or something like that will kind of break as you use that line. And so while I don't want it to look like a straight line all the time, I will go back in there and smudge it and break it up, because we want it to look like a shoreline. So I'm kind of smudging it and making it break up, and want it to look like rocks, sand, something on the beach there. And it will be a lighter color. It will be sort of an off-white orange or something of that sort, that you can kind of see it, and that just gives you the illusion of a shoreline there. And so here I'm just kind of smudging it out. And if you're following along traditionally, you would take your script brush and some white acrylic gesso with a whole bunch of, or with a lot of orange in it, and just kind of make a broken line across there between the reflection of the mountain and the actual mountain. And so as you can see there, it makes a pretty good look as a shoreline. And again, this is all distant, so it's not going to be real clear. So I'm blurring out the reflection of the mountain in the water here, and I'm using the sprayer, the cloud brush. It kind of gives it a nice sort of indistinct look, and we don't want a real hard edge there. You can leave some of the edges showing pretty well, but you kind of want to blur them out a little bit too, and that just gives it the look of a distant lake and a distant water. You're looking at it from a distance. You're not right there just staring down in it. And so I'm just kind of smoothing that out. And I like to use the oil brush and the old oil and the filbert a lot in Infinite Painter, also the Leo brush, the Blackwood brush. Some of those are some of my favorite brushes in Infinite Painter because they give you a kind of a painterly stroke. And so here I'm using, I think, an old oil brush, and I just want to add some more details to the clouds. So I'm making these lines, but I'm not going to leave them this way. We want to blur them in. And again, what you do in the sky, you need to do down in the water below. So I'm also adding these clouds into the water below. And we're using a sort of an off-white color. And again, if you're following traditionally, you would use cadmium orange with white acrylic gesso. You just want an off-white color. The mountains would be a dioxazine purple, probably with a little bit of ultramarine added and a lot of white. So those would be the colors you'd use if you're following along with acrylics. And then here I want to smudge the clouds out again, but not quite as much as I did before. Leave kind of a little bit more structure and look to them, that they have a little bit of some edge, a soft edge to them. And you want to do this to the clouds in the water as well, and you might blur them a little bit more than you would blur the ones in the sky. And so right now you can tell that it's beginning to look like water. It looks like there's a lake or something there. And you just want to go ahead and sort of step back and see what it's doing. And then I wanted to go ahead and sort of add a little bit more to the sky. The sky needs to be a little bit more orange in the lake. So I eventually wanted to try to get that back in there. And you can do this with a dry brush technique. If you're following traditionally, and that just means don't get a lot of paint, but just smudge a little bit down into the water again. And also I wanted to go ahead and draw some straight lines across the mountain a little, and this is sort of these are white lines. They're not straight, but they're kind of ripply looking lines, sort of a banana kind of stroke. And that just gives you the illusion of little tiny ripples on the lake. We're not, this is not an ocean. We're not going to have big waves, but there'll be little bitty tiny ripples that will appear on a lake. Even in the stillest lake, there's a little bit of some tiny ripples. And so I used the sprayer brush and added a little bit of darker blue in the corner to create sort of an eye stopper in the painting. And an eye stopper is what keeps your viewer's eye from wandering off the edge of your painting. So I darkened the corners just a little bit so that the focus is going to be more in the center of the painting. And I added a little bit of some purplish gray kind of down there in the bottom, just to darken it, and like I said, create a little bit of an eye stopper. But we want to go ahead and smooth it out. We don't want it to be a real blob or anything. We want to kind of smooth it out and make it look like ripples in the water. And so then you want to kind of just step back and see what needs to be added. And here I added a little bit of some dark ripples to the water, and you just add some little lines across there, and then try to smudge them out. Try to keep it where you don't lose all the lines. And I kept losing all the lines, so I was trying to put some more back in and just kind of give some more ripples and things. So this is the end of my lake series, and in part 2 we're going to go ahead and just finish up and add the final details and make it look more like water by adding a little boat onto it. So hit the subscribe button if you want to see part 2. And thanks everybody for watching. Thank you so much for your support. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments down below, and I will catch you later.